Well, hello everyone. You're here to talk about over here. What's the best way of how to describe clients, though? That whenever that there are your business men or anybody who's going to be working a project, though, a lot of times that they're going to be maybe be mentioning clients, or if it's going to be a client related to a team project, or a company or something like that, some source of business. And so, what's the best way of how to describe a client? And I guess you want to look at it as toward it, that it's another way of stating toward it, just work that's assigned to somebody, assigned to a professional until before they buy the service. And it sounds like to me just a little bit like whenever somebody mentions about clients, though, it's basically another way of stating toward that somebody that you're working with, and they're not really an employee with the business, but you're able to provide service to them as long as knowing about for I'm like, yeah. So it's another way of stating toward it that they're counting on this person who works for the company, but at the same time it's like the work that they perform as well. And so I have right here that this right here is some examples right here of some sketches right here, and I know we probably seen this before, but really though that whenever it comes to clients, though, it's another way of stating to where, if you want to look at it, is to where that that the way that you did business at one point of time is to where you go ahead and that if you were to post an ad in the paper or anything, like maybe on a cover letter or something like that, if you talk about what you do, and for what assistance is needed, and a lot of times it sure seems that way, that when we talk about clients, though, a lot of it seems to be related to, like, maybe if it's technical support, or if it's maybe telemarketing, communications, or anything like that. I'm like, service that you could provide to somebody before. I'm like, that if you are called to an assignment or something. It sounds like to me that everybody else will probably say too that when we're talking about clients, though, we're talking about that somebody that is willing to pay for, is willing to use the service, call for the service, just know about, and another way you can look at it is to where, that you're doing service for this person, even though that person don't work for the company or for the business. So they're a service with another company, and so I guess it's another way of how you want to look at it, is to where between the client and the actual co-worker, somebody working for the company, but then this other personnel is going to be working for a different company. So it's like a lot of companies that would go by is to where, you're not both working for the same company. You're each one of there's about 2 or 3 people working for a different company. So I guess if they are known as clients, but anyway, that a best way of how you want to call for a client, though, and sometimes I want to know too that well, really, that why are they called clients? Why can't you just really call them customers? And I guess I'm like, half the time, can we really explain about the difference between customers and clients? And if you want to look at this to where, well, really really what you would be actually doing is like with customers, though, that you would I guess if you actually worked in if you actually work for a store or any source of retail or business or something like that, I'm like, I guess you're probably thinking too is to where, well, really, that the customers are usually the ones that are like, that are the ones who actually pay for a certain service, like, pay, or if it's anything provide, ask for information, stuff like that. So really, that the best way of how to describe the difference between the customer and the client, though, and it sounds like to me, though, that it could probably be described in a number of ways, but the best way I have described is to where that that, well, first of all, it's like that if you get a call from a client, that's another way of stating to where that this client is working for a different company, actually, that maybe if he could be maybe a private owner to a small business or something like that. It could also be advised as to where, well, really, that we're asking one of your tenants to come out to, if it's maybe if it's farm work or if it's other sorts of a mechanical work or something like that is between customers and clients. But I know that right here that this I'm sure we've seen this before right here, but I'm just showing everybody here about with what are good examples of clients. And I guess if you're going to describe a client, though, that's another way of stating to where that somebody that you're going to be meeting up with and somebody that you're going to be working with, but still that they don't really, this other person does not work for the same company, that they're with a different company, but still, if you're called to report to a project, or if you're assigned a project, for a job, then that's another way of stating to our clients, compared to the customers. So it's, to me though, I would say it's about the same thing, but some may say that not really, because with most customers though, that really that the customers that you're not really working with other co-workers, other members of the business, compared to customers, like if you're going to be working with the customer, though, those customers, of course, are the ones that are the ones making the purchases, and making that for the difference between customers and clients. But I guess if you want to look at it as to where that about the clients, though, that these clients, of course, they are the ones that are actually if you want to kind of call this toward that before they hire this person working for this company, before they hire this technician, before they hire this mechanic or somebody, that before they go ahead and continue further with the service, with the business, then they're going to go ahead and see what sorts of work that they do. And to me though, that another way of how to describe a client though is that in case of anybody that may want to try not to get too confused about it, but it's like, really that if you're going to be working for a company though, that it sure seems that way toward that we go by client just because that you're going to be doing service for this person. They don't work for the same company as you do. You're doing service for them. And so it's like you may think to where that whenever you work with somebody else and 102 that okay, if you got the members or if it's customers, and at the time really what is the difference, but still that I guess another way of saying is to where really that's really about how you meet people, ain't it? Like if you go from state to state, and if you're going to be maybe working with somebody or being introduced to what they do, and machine, the equipment that they use, the equipment that this person uses, and the things that they do, maybe if it's in the medical industry, and so that's why it sure seems that way toward it. Looking at the paperwork, and a lot of times it's like, between management and maybe the members and maybe the tenants, and then the clients and the staff and all that. So a lot of times, anybody may even ask me too that really, what's the difference between the staff member and maybe the manager, or maybe if it's a client? And but I just really think too that really that the difference is, though, I guess it sure seems like to where that you got the staff, and then you got the members, and then you got the co-workers, and you got the clients, right? So a lot of times it sure seems that way to where that you got these different fields, these different groups of fields right here, to where that you got some volunteers and you got some staff of the team, and then you also have the clients. And so it sure seems that way to where that it can be confusing, especially if we're maybe talking about working for an insurance company. So let's just say that that if you're doing volunteer type work, and place might say, the companies might say too that really that the person that you were doing the project for, the person that you were reporting to be scheduled for for work for, that they have not necessarily hired. I'm like, so it sure seems that way, that there's kind of a difference between the customer and the client, because this client is basically working for a different company, but of course that they're asking somebody who works for that company to come and do service for them. And so it's basically I'm like, yeah, if you want to kind of call it, maybe just a little bit kind of buy, sell, and trade. But I just really think too that another way of how you want to describe a client, though, and some might even say too that well, really though, that can a client be described as somebody who just started, and maybe if they have about maybe only 2 or 3 years of experience or something like that, but say that well, really a client is really described as somebody who's working for a different business, working for a different company, but they're calling somebody else working for another company, you just to come and work on the service equipment and all that. But really that at the time it sure seems that way, that whenever if you're going to be doing a work for other people, I'm like working for somebody else, and want to know just a little bit too that you may think as to where, okay, between employee and manager, and that's usually what I hear. Other than members of the family, and other than members of the company, members of the company, members of the business, or if it's anybody else that might think too that if you're going to be working with somebody, and at the time that if you're going to be working with somebody, and let's just say that this person that you might be working with them for about maybe 5 or 6 weeks, something like that, maybe only 3 weeks, and you think about that maybe 3 years later, and just like wondering you weren't to where, okay, were they working for that company, or that no, that project was only going on, or that assignment was only going on for 3 weeks, something like that, 2 weeks. But so it sure seems that way, that whenever you're going to be having a job doing stuff, and half the time you want to know too that whenever you do meet people, and a lot of times though it sure seems that way, that maybe that's a little bit about why business cards are required, just because that people, other members of the company, if you meet other people who work for other companies, and they're going to maybe be calling you for a project or something like that, and just like want to know too that the one thing that we can look out for about a typical business card, and like a typical business card though, as far as if I didn't about that, for as a business, and as well as explain about the clients, but about the work that you do and work with the clients. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Talking about understand by clients.